big breaking news now coming in. The DGCA has cracked down on Air India over the lapses that were witnessed after a passenger urinated on his co-passenger on an Air India flight. Remember, the incident was from November. But the DGCA has now cracked the whip. A penalty has been imposed on Air India. 30 lakh rupee fine will have to be paid by Air India to the DGCA. The pilot has been suspended for 3 months as well. That's the big breaking news that we are getting to you here on CNN News 18. Right after Air India extended the ban on Shankar Mishra for 4 months, now DGCA has acted upon the airline itself, because remember, the victim had come out and alleged lapses on part of the crew that was on board that particular flight, which is why the pilot has now been suspended for 3 months and a hefty penalty has been imposed on the airline. Ridhima, my colleague, now joins us for more on that. Yes, Ridhima.
Right, Poonam, as you were rightly pointing out, the DGCA, they're cracking the whip on Air India as far as the P-Gate row is concerned. Yesterday, we had broken the news to our viewers how Shankar Mishra had been slapped with a 4-month ban, which means he can't fly on Air India for a time period of 4 months because he did tick all the boxes of what an unruly passenger is. And now action being taken against the airline. Remember, this is the largest penalty that we are seeing being imposed by the DGCA on an Indian carrier. So let me just read out the fine print of what really has happened. The pilot has been suspended for 3 months, as you rightly pointed out. An additional 3 lakh penalty on the director in-flight services, that is Vasudha Chandana. I'm just reading out from the information that has been put out by the DGCA. The DGCA issued a show cause notice to the accountable manager of the airline, that was Air India, all the pilots and the crew members. Remember, as per pending investigation, we'd already seen the cabin crew that included 4 members of the cabin crew and 1 pilot that had already been derostered. And now we're understanding a financial penalty of 3 lakhs has been imposed on Air India, license suspension of the pilot, as you rightly pointed out, for a time period of 3 months. And this is because for failing to discharge his duties as per Rule 141 of the Aircraft Rules 1937 and the applicable DGCA Civil Aviation requirements. Other than that, you're already seeing a penalty of 3 lakhs that has been imposed on the director in-flight services of Air India for failing to discharge her duties as per applicable DGCA Civil Aviation requirements. So big crackdown on Air India by the DGCA. First, we saw action on the accused Shankar Mishra, him being put on a 4-month ban by Air India. Many were asking, will other airlines follow? And now the DGCA cracking the whip on the airline itself. There's a penalty as well as suspension for the pilot.
Right, and it's important to note that in the complaint that was filed by the victim with the police, with the airline itself, right after the incident took place, she had categorically listed the kind of lapses that were witnessed on part of the crew on board that particular flight, which is why action has been taken. Now, the pilot has been suspended, Ridhima, but what about the rest of the crew? Are we going to see Air India take action against them?
That's a possibility, Poonam. As I rightly pointed out earlier as well, that we'd already seen 1 pilot and 4 cabin crew members who had been derostered already because the investigation was pending. Yesterday, the details that we broke for our viewers was that Air India has also conducted an internal committee review, and after that they put that ban on Shankar Mishra. Now we're seeing the DGCA crack the whip, so there is a possibility that we could see more action follow. But just to give better context to why we're seeing all of this happen, because if you go back to that complaint that was written by the elderly woman, 2 Tata Sons, her biggest grouse was that the cabin crew was not sensitive and empathetic enough. If you go back to the guidelines of Air India themselves, they have clear guidelines of what defines an unruly passenger and what the cabin crew should do in a case like that. Despite all those protocols being in place, what Air India initially tried to do was to try and bring Shankar Mishra and the elderly woman face to face to try and have some sort of compromise and to try and dismiss the case. But only on landing, when the woman went ahead and filed that complaint, is the time when this case actually came out. This is something that the DGC had also said, that we also came to know about the incident pretty late in the day, and they'd taken cognizance, and now the DGC are not mincing any words in that penalty that they've cracked on Air India.
Right, do stay on with me. Ananya, my colleague, also joining us for more on that. Ananya, we are given to understand that Shankar Mishra has also now reacted to how the DGCA has cracked the whip. Shankar Mishra is already facing the criminal law of this country. He also is facing a 4-month ban by Air India.
Well, yes, a 4-month ban by Air India was imposed on Shankar Mishra after the internal committee gave its final findings, and now a statement has also been issued by the lawyers of Shankar Mishra, Mr. Akshat Bajpai and Mr. Shani Sharma, clearly saying that while we respect the authority and the mandate of the internal inquiry committee, we disagree with their findings and are already in the process of appealing this decision in accordance with the DGCA CAR for unruly passengers. We would particularly like to point out that the Internal Inquiry Committee's ruling hinges upon the incorrect understanding of the layout of the aircraft. When the committee would not find the adequate explanation as to how the accused could have urinated on the complainant sitting on 9A without also affecting the passenger sitting on 9C, it has erroneously gone on to assume that there was a seat 9B in the business class in the aircraft, and imagine that the accused would have stood at this imaginary seat and urinated on the complainant on seat A. However, there is no seat 9B in the business class on the aircraft, and 9A and 9C is the only seat that is there on a business class of these aircraft. So
Right.
basically, what the lawyers for Shankar Mishra are trying to say is that the findings of the internal committee of the DGCA is something which is contrary, which is wrong, because they have a wrong understanding of the aircraft's layout, and there is no seat called 9B
Right.
on that particular
So that's the
aircraft.
side of the alleged pervert on board the Air India flight is concerned. Ananya, do stay on with me. Captain Amit is joining us on this broadcast. He's an aviation expert. Captain, thank you so much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. The kind of financial penalty that has now been imposed on Air India is perhaps the largest in the history of this country.
Yeah, 30 lakh fine for Air India is hardly anything. If you see, on the contrary, the pilot has been suspended for 3 months. The pilot loses 30 lakhs, Air India is fined 30 lakhs. So there is a proportion of fine. So DGCA has the powers to impose fine up to 1 crore. So that is the fine for 30 lakhs for Air India is nothing. If you have completed an investigation, you find that the Air India services were blameworthy, then you could suspend the serving of alcohol for 3 months. Something like that, which happens in the US. In the US, the fines are much heavier. But previously, Air India was fined 10 lakhs for carrying dangerous goods without permission. And this has amounted to 30 lakhs. So, you see, pilots are being fined up to, they have been suspended up to 2 years, 3 years. They lose in crores. Whereas corporates lose only 10 lakhs to 30 lakhs. That is a drop in the ocean. So that is not a fair judgment. Yeah.
Sure. Captain Amit, thank you so much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. The lapses on part of the airline, on part of the crew on that board is also something that the DGCA has taken note of and consequently acted upon it. For now, we're shifting focus to more news coming in.